Thank you very much, Kirk. Good to be here talking today, and I'm going to talk about this Out of Eden project that I'm working on and is an ongoing project, and how we are thinking about using these geocoded tweets and GPS and how it affects privacy. But first I want to give everyone my experience with TweetMap, and to me it was like this Google Earth moment. You know, when Google Earth came out 8-9 years ago, this amazing three-dimensional world, I could fly around anywhere I wanted to. First thing I did, I think a lot of people probably did this, I zeroed in right on my house. I wanted to see my house on that satellite image, and I did. There it was. That was awesome. TweetMap comes out last year, and I thought, well, what do I want to do? You know, first thing with TweetMap, what do I want to do? I want to fly in right into my neighbor's house and look at what they're tweeting and see what they're saying. So I did that. Zoomed in here, got into my neighborhood, and of course each blue dot represents a tweet here. And with this great detail that OpenStreetMap provides, you can actually see, you know, house outlines. And notice there's some clusters of blue dots. Not everyone has their location enabled when they're tweeting. Not everyone is tweeting, of course. But you can see little clusters that can, you know, you can definitely correlate to certain houses out there. And then you can also query those and bring up the exact tweets that people are putting up on there. And it made me proud to live in the neighborhood that I do. I mean, I can relate to this stuff, right? I mean, I want a cat. I want a kitten. I love kittens. You know, this is great stuff. But just sort of to show how granular we are here with this kind of data. And one other thing, as a geographer, I'm always looking at maps in terms of the spatial patterns I see on there and correlations. And here what I saw in looking at this area between Worcester and Framingham, you know, you've got some highways going through there, and a lot of tweets are on these highways. And people are traveling fast on these highways. So think about that on your next road trip. At least I will be. But what I was asked to talk about today is this project called the Out of Eden Walk. It's the brainchild of Paul Salopek up there on the right, who is a journalist. He's been a foreign correspondent for the Chicago Tribune. He's written for National Geographic, won a few Pulitzer Prizes. And his latest project is to literally walk around the world. Not around the entire world, but most of it. And he specifically is following the path of human migration, where our ancestors migrated from, sort of in Africa here, and then spread out across the Middle East and through Asia and across the Bering Land Bridge at the time, down North America, down through South America, to the very tip of South America, Tierra del Fuego. And this project is taking him a lot of time. He's planning on 7 years to complete this. And he just started walking in January. It took our ancestors about 60,000 years to complete this journey. So through that Nieman Fellowship at Harvard, Paul came to us at the CGA, and we all sat down in an office together and started brainstorming about maps. Paul wanted mapping to be a very big component of his journey, of his walk. And you talk to a cartographer, and this is sort of, you know, the dream job for a map maker. The entire world, a journey. You know, zooming into different places, maps of all different kinds of scales, of different things everywhere. This is what Paul's doing along the walk. He's posting these little stories, these little vignettes at different mileposts along the walk. More than a blog, less than a magazine article, but essentially talking to people, observing, and writing about what happens between all of these huge events that reporters normally flock to in the world. He's sort of trying to get at what's between all of those. And going back to our fundamental way of getting around the Earth, just walking on 2 feet. So a 7-year journey with all kinds of different maps to create. He's carrying the latest technology, which includes a GPS mapping device, so he's mapping where he is all the time, and a sat phone so he can communicate his pictures and his stories back to his teams in the US and the UK. And as we were talking, the idea came up of a Twitter spotlight. And it was Ben Lewis who had this idea, and Paul really liked this idea, and this was right around the time about 1 year ago when Todd and Ben were putting together a tweet map. How about this idea of Paul out there on his walk, tweeting what he's doing, tweeting his locations, and sort of engaging his followers in this sort of spotlight idea that talks about what he's doing in these different places, and also has this sort of real-time component that is available for all of his followers to check out and make it that much more interactive and that much more engaging. So we all love that idea, and then we went away from the meeting and started thinking about this idea in much more detail, and Paul raised some issues. These three here. Publicity. This walk for him is about the places he's walking through and the people he's meeting and the cultures he's walking through. If everyone knows that he's coming to a town and they all meet him at the town line, then that sort of ruins the entire premise of the walk. He wants it to be about the people. He doesn't want it to be about him. So he's sort of trying to balance between engaging people and having them follow him, yet not becoming the story as he moves across the world. There's also many sensitive sites that he's visiting, archaeological sites with human remains, especially in the first part of the walk, that looters would love to target and destroy or take all the artifacts to sell, and he certainly doesn't want to be broadcasting those locations. And then perhaps, most important of all is his own security. There are people who may want to do him harm out there. He's walking through many nations that are volatile politically, and another reason to sort of think about maybe not doing this real-time Twitter spotlight idea. So we'll get back to those, and let me just show you sort of the website and what we've published so far. He's completed a small portion of the walk, about 350 miles of the 21,000 miles. He's walked from the Adam and Eve site in Ethiopia here, and he's made it to Djibouti at this point. And this is the route that he felt comfortable publishing. Notice this, he's not walking in these exact straight segments of this line. This is significantly generalized. And at each little vertex, those are what he calls milestones, and that's where he has a story that he publishes to sort of to clue people in that there's interesting things that they can read about that little location. So here's another zoom in of the currently published route. Soon we're going to publish his raw GPS coordinates, and that's going to come up in a matter of days. And this is the raw GPS track from Paul. So now you see where he really is, where he has to go around mountains or lakes, or maybe there's tribal warfare that he has to skirt around. All that detail is in this route, as well as the cities he went to, the places he stayed. Again, we have this incredible detail to overlay on, and he's fine with this stuff going online now that he's passed through these areas. But you can imagine what people could use this for, or the things people could use it for that could be of harm. So how do we deal with these things? Certainly the time lag in his location reporting, one thing that's essential here. When you get to those sensitive sites, either you delete that GPS data or he just turns his GPS off, so there's no chance of it getting on a map anywhere. And then a few cartographic techniques, route generalization, taking his actual route and generalizing it here, and also introducing this idea of this vague area. It's not a discrete route that he's going to. This is sort of the general area that he's going to, or a few techniques we're using. And to conclude, we do want to get back to the Twitter spotlight, and we're going to do that, but instead of showing what Paul is tweeting and where he is, we're going to take tweet map and harvest the tweets in a certain area around a certain part of his walk and turn that into a word cloud where we see what people are saying in that area. And this is an example from somewhere else. But the frequency of words is drawn in bold type or in larger font with word clouds, and then apply that to where he was and sort of do that along his route at certain intervals and also at different times, so that when he gets to step 2, we'll take the word cloud from the time that he traveled from point A to B and regenerate a word cloud at the first spot, so that we have this, this series of word clouds at all these places that he's been to. So that's a little bit about that project. We're working on other stuff. Here's the contact information, and I appreciate everyone listening. Thank you.
Last but not least, I have to add that not least part, is Chris Tucker from Map Story, who is going to talk about not Map Story.